I met the person who has become my closest non-family friend at freshman orientation as we began our college career at a college in Wisconsin. Now, he was 6'5" tall, so it was kind of easy to pick him out. And we hit it off right away. As it turned out, we both became history majors, and also both of us minored in philosophy and religion. We sang in the same barbershop quartet, and we ended up going to seminary together. He married a girl that I had known from my grade school days, and I married a girl that he knew from his grade school days, and our lives have been meshed together ever since. Our first children were born 2 weeks apart. How did that happen? He is still working part-time, as I am still working. He is a psychotherapist in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He and his wife own a condo in Sister Bay, Wisconsin, and that's where Pat and I go every so often to renew our lives, both with that part of the world and with Dan and with Helen. Now, in his work, Dan specializes in long-term psychotherapy, people with deep-seated continuing issues. And some of those folks are desperate people struggling to just make it from one day to another day. He told me that in his work there is one overarching reality, one that often accounts for the depression and the struggle and the desperation of their lives from time to time, and that one issue is self-loathing. Self-loathing. Issues of self-worth. That sometimes those issues go back to a difficult family situation, that in that particular family there was a struggle for space, a struggle of self-worth, a struggle of being accepted for who you are and who you were becoming. And sometimes the trauma is some other kind of tragedy, abuse, whatever, but something that has grabbed that person and stays with them all through the rest of their lives. And the damage continues in multiple ways. I am no good. I am not worthy. I am unlovable. No one knows me. In fact, no one wants to know me. Better that I would just go away. The human dilemma, simply stated, is finding our place. Accepting both who we are and who we are becoming, and finding where it is that we fit in with the grand design we call life. The psalmist, I believe, had it right in Psalm number 8, one of my favorites. When I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you have established, what are human beings that you are mindful of them? Mortals, that you care for them? Yet you have made them a little lower than God and crowned them with glory and honor. You have given them dominion over the works of your hands. And you see, that's where we are. We are suspended, so to speak, suspended between God and God's creation. Stewards of God's amazing world, God's representatives, God's agents in charge of the world in which you and I live. And yet we are mortal. We are here today and gone tomorrow. We are momentary actors in a grand design, playing bit parts in this huge drama we call life. living in that middle station between God and being mortal is not easy, especially if we take it seriously. One extreme in living in that middle part, the middle stratosphere, is to become a raving narcissist. A raving, raging narcissist, demanding that all the attention be centered on us. I am the most important person in any room in which I am. Attitude. I should always be the center of adoration. I deserve that. I always know best. I am the greatest. That's a narcissist. And the root of all that, I believe, is an attempt to compensate for insecurities, this insatiable conquest of space and people's allegiance and acclamation and power. Compensation. But it comes off as this narcissist. I am the greatest. There are a few of those. But the greater tendency, I believe, is to think too little of ourselves, and that's also wrong. To continuously put ourselves down, to be depressed by our own lot in life, as if we have no value, we have no worth, and we are of no use to God or to anyone else. That's awful. To compensate that, I think the letter of 1 Peter has it right, which I read before, written to a beleaguered, not yet wet behind the ears, still wet behind the ears, minority Christian community in Asia Minor. For the letter says, "But you are a chosen race. You are a royal priesthood. You are a holy nation, God's own people, in order that you may proclaim the mighty acts of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Once you were not a people, but now you are God's people. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy." This morning I'm calling that living into your britches. Growing into your rightful destiny as a child of God. Being able to look in a mirror and see more than just an image of ourselves, but looking into that mirror and seeing one of God's most precious creatures, fearfully and wonderfully made in the very image of God. Perhaps you remember those formative teenage years. I know I have rich memories of my personal journey into adulthood and self-awareness. Who was I going to be when I grew up? I remember looking around for role models, deciding finally that I wanted to be just like Lou Schmidt. Lou Schmidt was going to be my role model. He lived in the neighborhood. He was 3 years older than I was. He was a good-looking fellow, better than average athlete. He played the flute beautifully, and he always had multiple girlfriends. Always. He had so many attributes that I did not have. Being John Krueger was no attraction at all. I wanted to be like Lou Schmidt. I smile about that now because since the time I've learned some things about Lou Schmidt that were not so appealing. But at the time, I didn't want to be me. I wanted to be Lou Schmidt. Being comfortable in your own skin, accepting yourself, being this interesting package of pluses and minuses, that's part of maturity. That's growing from those awful teenage years into being a person of your own making. Learning that second part of the second commandment, you shall love your neighbor as you love yourself. You shall love the neighbor as you love yourself. You see, you and we are part of a chosen race, but it's not an exclusive race, one better than the other. Every human being is also a part of a chosen race, one of God's precious children. You can be precious and have other people share that attribute. You and we are members of a holy nation. And every nation is equally holy, special, gifted. We are all residents on this spinning globe, no matter how or where we were born. You and we are God's own people, all created in God's image, each unique, each a miracle of life and promise, from the little ones on. It is sad that the world in which you and I live is committed to competition. Competition. Pitting some against another, whether that be race or nation or religion or politics or economic institutions. And we like to keep score. We like to make sure that we know who the winners are and who the losers are, knowing that some will have more advantages than others, and that some will make the rules and enforce those rules on those who weren't in the room when the rules were made. And we wonder why we are anxious people, and why we have these insecurities, and why we tend to be vengeful when we shouldn't be, and why we are often obnoxious to one another. Living into our britches. Yes, the creative genius of the world in which we live cares about you, that you are one of some 6 million people alive at this time, and yet you are much more than just one of those ciphers of 6 billion people. The truth is that few of us will be long remembered, that our stay here is short and fleeting, temporary, but we can leave a mark. We can touch somebody as we're going about this living business, for sure. We're going to leave a mark not so much in a history book, but in people. A person, many people, who knows? The God we have come to know in Jesus Christ relies on us to carry forward the ministry of Jesus Christ. If good is to be done in the name of a gracious God, it will be done by you and me and people like us. If God is seen as a God of compassion and forgiveness, it will happen because of we who claim to be God's people, the way in which we treat other people with compassion and goodness and forgiveness and love. For that really is our calling. And the scary thing, the reality for us, we who are self-proclaimed Christians, is that folks can expect us to be different. In fact, I think folks can expect us to be better. That people can draw conclusions about God, about Jesus, by observing what we do and by what we say. When I see a car or a truck on the road that has on it some kind of designation, some kind of identification as a Christian car or truck. There's a name of a church on it, maybe a sign of a fish or a cross or a bumper sticker that has some kind of religious meaning. I expect that driver to be above average. I do. I expect that driver to be more courteous. I expect that driver to be less aggressive. And I expect that driver to be more considerate. I do. And I'm often disappointed. And I think to myself, better to remain anonymous, take that stuff off your car, than to give God a bad name. If you choose to wear the name and claim the allegiance, live up to that claim. Live up to God's stature as much as you are able. And so we are created just a little lower than God, and we are given the job of being stewards of God's magnificent creation. A royal priesthood, a chosen nation, God's own people. Those are the descriptions of our rightful britches, our calling to be a special people. To say over and over to yourself, you count. We all count. No one like you has ever lived before, and no one like you will ever live again. Honor and embrace that uniqueness. And accept that honor as God's gift to you. Represent your God as best as you are able, for God's reputation in part is shaped by the life you live and the way you are with others. And the good news is we are all in this together. You helping me, all of us helping each other. Amen.